Hello everyone. My name is Gustavo, and together with Ilva, Neo, and Xuanming, my co-founder of Ignite, we hope that everyone who's tuning in today is ready to enrich their knowledge and learn. If you have not joined us before, allow me to give you a brief introduction about Ignite and let you know why we have launched this online series. So Ignite is an international network of event professionals who wants to make a difference in the events world. We provide specialized consultancy service in combination with active and integrated support of project delivery. We're also strong advocates of education, and it's one of Ignite's main pillars. Within the scope of education is knowledge sharing, and we believe that it is vital to the continued innovation and improvement of policies and processes in the sports industry. With that in mind, Ignite's launched this What Is series, which serves as a cornerstone of what we hope to be a rich source of information for future and already established event professionals alike. The founders of Ignite, who have been working in the industry for the past decade, realized that it's not easy to obtain information and knowledge of the industry, especially in specific topics around planning and organizing a sports event. Without getting practical experience working in an organizing committee or attending a sports management course. So the aim of this series is to provide you some specific knowledge and information. And today we'll be diving into the area of Event Operations Center. Our guest today is Peter Ward. So Peter is the co-founder of WeTrack, Ignite's newest partner that provides project, risk, readiness, run sheet, and incident management software to venues, events, and governing bodies internationally, including Wimbledon, Ascot, International Cricket Council, Expo 2020, Commonwealth England, Rugby League World Cup, CASE, FIVB, UK Festival, World Triathlon, Cheltenham Racecourse, Ryder Cup, European PGA, Special Olympics, Saudi Games, and many others. The WeTrack system was created by Peter and his colleague Clive Stephens, following their experience at London 2012, and is totally focused on improving event operations in major sports events. WeTrack has continued to grow quickly based on referrals and networking. Their focus is purely on events, venues, and the adjacent sectors. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Peter.
Hello.
Hi there, Peter. How's it going?
Yeah, all is well here from a rather cold and windy London.
Very well. Everything is fine. Are you coping well with the pandemic and the new?
Yeah, we're getting there. And after a very quiet few months, there's definitely a bit more activity. So I hope that is extending across the industry and to others as well. It definitely feels like people are starting to have the confidence to plan again and get ready for next year and beyond.
Yeah, I agree. I guess that first scary phase of uncertainty, now people are more moving to, okay, let's go for what's next, what's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation to join us. And I think the topic today is very, very interesting, and that's something that for sure can really be the interest of our guests today. So the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So, hello everybody, first of all. As Guy said, my name is Peter. So I'm going to take you today through a little bit of my thoughts on Event Operations Center or Control Room. I'll probably use the two interchangeably. So the difficulty with pitching something like this to an unknown group of people is some of you are probably highly experienced in event control rooms and operation centers, and some of you not. So what I'm doing is probably going to present something which is a little bit basic to start with, and then hopefully later on we'll have a little bit of the scale at the more complex end. So what I'm going to take you through is, sorry, let me bring up this. Very quick introduction, and then what is an event control room? What do you need to successfully run an event control room, and then how they scale for major events, and then just some other general information. So just by means of background, like I said, a variety of clients we've done. So the learnings that we have for Event Control Room have come out of all sorts of different things. So not all Olympic scale, some from very small items, festivals, up to very complex ones that last for a long period of time. And that's going to be the basis for what I'm going to explain to you. So what is an event control room? So I like to think of the event control room as basically the brain of a large and or complex event. The reason I put and or complex is because sometimes you have a large event or relatively large event, maybe a very large wedding, and you don't need an event control room unless it's the wedding of an event professional who just wants to put one in, which is probably unlikely. But sometimes you might have the same number of people, but doing an ultra marathon through dangerous places or through the desert, in which case you probably would have some sort of operation center or control room, even if that control room's on the move. So the point is, and I'll keep coming back to this, there's no one answer, and the main the operation center or the control room for one event needs to be suitable for the event that it's serving. Anyway, back to the analogy of being the brain. So the brain itself can't actually do a lot. All it's doing is processing information. So you can think of it taking in CCTV footage as the eyes, radio with the ears. That's pulling information, making decisions, and then instructing limbs, or in the real life world, people or other agencies, to go and do something, to either remove the hand from the hot pan, or to going somewhere else, whatever that might be. So that's how I think of an event control room. It's often isolated from the event, either physically or by other means. But what it's doing is processing and instructing back to the event organizers and operators. I won't take this analogy too far, but the one other thing that we'll come back to is that event control room should only ever be dealing with things that have to come to the brain. So the reflexes of the body, if you tap the knee, the reflex of the knee going back up, that never goes to the brain. That bypasses the brain and it doesn't even go to the spinal cord. So you could think of that as also a lot of decisions being taken without it having to go to the event control room. So the purpose of the event control room or operation center is to maintain oversight of the whole event or venue, or venues, depending on the complexity, to manage incidents and issues as they arise, log everything that happens across site. Obviously, I put everything in exclamation marks because you can't, quotations, because you can't log everything that happens, but trying to log the right level of detail is really important because you never know when it will be useful later. But the main point is to try and get the right information to the right people at the right time. So there's no point giving all the information to all the people at the right time because they just get swamped. Likewise, if you give them information, the right information, too late, then it's fairly pointless. But also if you give them information too early or not at the appropriate time, then it can get lost. So it's all about getting those three elements correct. Just some useful acronyms and definitions. Event control and operation center, like a lot of major event stuff, is riddled with acronyms. I'll only be going through a few. ECR, event control room, ELT, event liaison team. That might be one that's used more in the UK and Europe than elsewhere in the world. Those two are often used interchangeably when they shouldn't be. An event liaison team, at least over here, is quite often means that it's the emergency services, so the police, fire, ambulance liaison team sitting within an event control room. C3, C4, command, control, communication, collaboration, depending how you do it. I've seen C2. I'm just waiting for C, where it's just command one day. MOC, main operation center, POC, park operation center. These are just a few examples, and there are hundreds more. VOC. The safety officer I've put in here. So again, this is something predominantly from the UK. So the safety officer is responsible for overseeing the implementation of the health and safety plan for the events. The reason I put that in there is because the safety officer is really an important person for events and venues in the UK, and they quite often have the legal responsibility for the safety of the people that are attending that event. Now, that might not be used everywhere around the world, but the SGSA, the Sports Ground Safety Authority in the UK, which was set up after the Hillsborough disaster in 1989, where 96 people died at a football game, they produced the Green Guide. And a lot of you will know the Green Guide because the Green Guide is still the gold standard across the world for ensuring that you have a safe venue for your spectators. An incident we define as an unplanned occurrence that negatively impacts your ability to operate, versus a log, which is something which is planned or has no real impact on the event's operations. So what does an event control room need to operate? It needs suitable place, processes, equipment, and people. Those 4 things. Again, just a reminder that every event is slightly different or very different, and what is suitable for one is not for another. So all this can do is really provide a bit of a framework. Suitable place, anything from a desk to a cabin to an entire main operation center over a suite of offices, sometimes in multiple floors. So you need to make sure you have the right place. But whatever it is, you need to get the basics right, and quite often this is missed out. Surprisingly common around phone reception. Make sure you're not in a black spot, that the internet is good, you've got heating and or cooling depending on where you are, access to drinking water, all those sort of basics you need in order to run anything. You might need a backup location, and there's an increasing use we're seeing of off-site event control rooms. I think this is a trend which is only likely to increase further, especially because of COVID-related issues over the next couple of years. But if your event control room is, say, 100 meters off-site, then why could it not be a kilometer off-site? And if it's a kilometer off-site, then eventually they will become more and more remote and specialist entities. So next up, processes. So you need well-defined and rehearsed information flow. This is particularly important if you've got a new event or one which has never been delivered before. If you have a venue which is running week on week, then you can learn and people know and they have experience of it. But if you don't, then you need to rehearse that information flow. Make sure you have the pre-event checks and sign-off processes. You need to have all the run sheets in there, or whatever you call them, running orders. Remember, if you put shit in, you'll get shit out. So you need to make sure that people are comfortable that the information coming to them is accurate and that they can act on that information. So the process is good. If people are not confident in the information coming into them, then it undermines everything, and it really does impact an operations center's ability to operate well. Have those roles well defined, including how you're going to interact with external agencies, whether they be police or ambulance or government or whoever those are. Means of communication, basics again, phone, radio, pen, paper, software preferably. The more digitized and automated the better, but you need to have the backup because some of this is critical. So you would never just rely on a system on its own. Suitable equipment, just a list of stuff there. So again, basic things. In London 2012 on the Park Operations Centre, we had the Army come in quite late on to help with security, and they only wanted maps, some food, and somewhere to charge their phones. If you gave them the 3 of those, they'd be very, very happy. So they just came in, ripped all our maps off the wall, took up all the charging sockets, and drank most of the coffee. But they were very happy. So again, don't underestimate getting the basics right to people and allow them just to do what they know they need to do. Which brings me on neatly to suitable people. So probably the most important, of course, calm, rationale, prepared. There's a lot of other attributes they'd have there. I'm sure all of those are shared by the igniters from around the world. But having the right person trained for the right role. So having a whole event control room full of highly experienced event directors is actually not that helpful. You need to have the right person fill the right role. So in some cases, you might want to have a lot of experience on a particular function or in a particular venue, or someone who is more junior, who's there to log and is content and happy to do the logging. Having all of that in the right ratio allows for the best operation possible. Safety officer, if you have one, because they have legal responsibility, is key. So over here, that's the person to listen to. Other people that might be in there around comms, and blue lights, the event liaison team from police operations teams. So the access should be restricted, but a lot of people want to be there rather than want to be there. So there's always a balance. If you are on a major site and you've got one event control room and it's raining heavily, you'll find you have a very busy event control room versus if it's lovely and sunny and there's sport competitions going on elsewhere. It's always important to make sure that access control is well managed. So moving on a little bit, keys to successful event control in terms of information. This is just going to be a small subset, but you can break it down into static information and dynamic information. Static, having your run sheets. I put those in italics because those do change, but in theory, they're pretty much what they're going to be. Having your contingency plans, your competition plans, your CAD drawings, there's lots of other stuff, which is information which you know way in advance, and you could print it all out and put it in a binder and be fairly confident that if you need to access it, it will still be the same information as it was when it went into that folder. Then dynamic stuff, so things that are changing more often, weather, so often a major impact. Luckily, there's brilliant resources you can have now to map radar and weather forecasts, daily statistics of all sorts, the daily reporting, which is coming up from different FA desks or different venues. CCTV is obviously changing very quickly, and the crowds. If you have a lot of people attending an event, crowd behavior changes very quickly. So making sure that someone who understands that well is able to access the information normally through CCTV and respond to it and predict it is very important. And lots of other things. So in terms of how an incident gets resolved, so reported, recorded, and resolved, not always in that order. Sometimes it is resolved and then it's recorded and then reported if it's a very small one, but generally those things need to happen. So try and confirm and record, write down as much as you can of the cause, location, severity, timing. Again, be appropriate. If it's something very, very low level, you don't need to record all of this information because it might mean that you miss having the opportunity to respond to something which is far more severe. But at a certain level, you need all of this sort of information. How to resolve it. Consultation of relevant material. In theory, you should be able to predict 99% of everything that is going to go wrong. So all of your contingency policies and plans and rehearsals of those should have been done and everything in place long before that incident happens. You also need to do the analysis of any implications both during and post-resolution. So if you've got a major crisis, then obviously you go into your crisis room and you have your crisis team, which has been defined beforehand to look at it, whether that's from legal, financial, comms, and then of course the safety and operational side, depending on what it is. But try and write everything down, and that's really important. So the old rule: if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. And making sure that you've got information there in a method and a type that can be easily accessed by anyone who needs to get access to it, as long as they have permission, is really important. So this is just one screen from a system of ours. The point is not necessarily to show you WeTrack, but just to show you one view of what I'm talking about in terms of a system. So if we look on the left over here, we have dashboards, so quickly scanning and analyzing information. We have incident lists versus log lists. So as I mentioned earlier, differentiating between the two, but still being able to swap between and escalate things. So this is a map view. Then, which I'll come to in a moment. Then we've got all the histories. You can see everything that's happened, all the pre-event checks, opening checks, being able to create our daily reports, and then being able to edit things if we can. So the reason I pulled this up is, and this is for a fake festival in the UK, is from this one screen you can see hopefully what I've been trying to explain of getting the right information to the right people. So down the left you can see I can sort by severity of incidents, or I can look at the location. So I might just be responsible for, say, this venue over here or this field. So I can access the right thing depending on what I want to. I can also view it by agency or by sector or incident category, or my active channels, what I'm allowed to see. So you have lots of different ways of being able to set up and view the information that's on the incidents that are, and I'm just talking about incidents at the moment, that are relevant to you rather than being swamped with everything. So the final bit for an event control room, this photo, nothing to do with me. I found it on the internet last week, but it was, I thought, a nice illustration of all the things you need in a tiny little event control room are still here. So you need a radio, which is in her hand. You can see the maps on the wall behind her, pen and paper in front, a laptop, hopefully with some software on it. They didn't use WeTrack. I don't think they used anything. Telephone, can you see on the desk behind? Lunch bag with water, coffee and biscuits down here in the front right. You can see there that's clearly a running order or a run sheet of some sort, and a sense of humour. She's got two sort of very short bunny rabbit ears on her head. So hopefully all of those things are, seem familiar to all of you that are running an event control room. They are the basics, no matter how big or how small your operation center is. But operation centers can get very large. So this was the main operation center for Rio 2016. It's subsequently now the main operation center for the city. It's actually an area of legacy that a lot of people don't talk about, because quite often these large event control centers are used to improve a city or an area afterwards, especially at the Olympic level. We're still using a lot of the transport centres that were set up during the London 2012 Olympics. So when you get up to this scale and this complexity, things obviously change, but a lot of the basic principles are still correct. Just to show you, London 2012. So this is what I was involved in. This is where my career started in the events world and my interest. And I was based in the Park Operations Centre down here. So we were the cluster operation centre, as it were, for the park. So even on the park, you've got nearly a dozen competition venues and a dozen non-competition venues, plus all your transport hubs and lots of other places. The fan zones, walkways, the common domain, things outside of our perimeter as well that we needed to be aware of. And then that's just in London. Then we've got all the other venues across the country. Now, when it gets to that level, obviously, you can't just, you need to be even more accurate and stringent with getting the right information to the right people at the right time. So this is a mock sort of classic example here. This percentage is the percentage of decisions that should be taken at each level, and you see it's the vast majority should be taken on site. So whether by the venue team or the FA team on site or someone else just walking around, by far most of the decisions should be taken at that point. It's only when something becomes too complex or requires extra resources or really does need a little bit of checking that should ever go up to the mock. So the mock itself is a large center with a lot of people that should all be dedicated to resolving a very, very small percentage of issues and exceptions that are going on during a major event. And I'm really talking about Olympics at the moment, but same will apply to Com Games and Pan Am Games and others. And then the very final, not half of those, a third of those, but even less than that should be going up to executive level. So hopefully very few times during the course of Olympic Games should anything be going up above that, where that means that you've really got a problem or a decision to make. So the purpose of the main operation center is central coordination of all games time operations. So this control hub of information affecting venues, stakeholders, and lots more. And when you go up from a festival or a single sport event up into these big multi-sport events, the complexity is almost exponentially grown, and therefore your scaffolding, as it were, your support structure around the event needs to scale appropriate as well. So it's not twice as complicated, it's 15 times as complicated. Try and be the single source of truth for information. Again, information is key. So quite often at a small event, that main operation center or just event control room is almost the last custodian of data. They're asking for the reports and they close it down. When you go above that, there's a lot of other people asking for information all the time. So being able to provide reports onwards to executive, to government, to external agencies, whenever they need it, is definitely a core part of a main operation center. To provide support and resource for the operational venues. So it's not just take. They should be feeding back. They should be seen as a helpful resource, not as just, as Neo said, the Eye of Sauron taking all the time. They should be able to look at that information and be able to provide resources back to it. I'm not going to extend the Tolkien analogy with armies or something, but you get the idea. Identify trends. So at that level, they should be able to identify and see trends that any single operational sites individually just can't do. Then act as the link to other agencies. So again, all about the information flow, exec level, mock level, and the venue operational site level. So who relies on the mock? There's lots and lots of stakeholders. This is very, very few of them, but the bottom right, low cog internally, and this is an image that a colleague of mine made. So this is just talking about London here, but the same would apply. Then we've got stakeholders externally, with athletes, all the National Olympic committees asking for information. That's the most important thing, if anything. So being able to provide them with current information is vital. And then you have all the other agencies I was talking about, the other operating centres, transport, the local authorities, national government. And then within the mock, sort of to the side of the mock, the ones that have the biggest presence tend to be the big FAs. So technology, transport, a lot of those will have large presences and their own centres as well to help coordinate. So you can make it as complicated as you like, is the short answer, but trying to keep things simple is always the best approach. Even within a mock, when you start getting to the Olympic level, just to deal with that in theory, very small number of things, you have lots and lots of layers. So decision support, deputy managers, directors, and then going up to the director of operations. It's all about layering what information is going up. And at each level, the experience and knowledge of those individuals in that role increases. So in theory, it only goes above them if it exceeds their capability or their knowledge. All the way up to the very top, where hopefully no items ever go to. So a few other parts of the mock, the FA desks, as I sort of alluded to, there'll be FA desks in there, of course, and the bigger FAs have a larger presence. Functional coordination centres across all the low-cog or low-cog operations. Liaison teams, whether those are going into venues or into government agencies. Administration, so you do need admin support within the mock, just to make sure everything, all the wheels are well oiled. And this was the main operations center, or part of it, from the 2019 Special Olympic World Games last year. And we've seen a very, very small operations center, and we've seen the largest of the lot. This is probably where a lot more of us There's a little more events running this sort of size main operation center than there are just once every 2 years on the Olympics. But you'll see a lot of the same concepts. So some nice fun things on the wall, phones, laptops, nice big screens. This is actually part of WeTrack they were using. Just can't see any incident pins in there. But this level of event control room is just a really nice atmosphere to be in at the right level. A few best practices for incident management: prepare thoroughly. Especially readiness plans, readiness exercises, respond consistently, making sure that if you're going in shifts, then having a consistent approach to how to deal with something is key, and not just be up to the individual. There will of course be some nuances, but having out contingency plans and checklists, if that can be automated through a system, then fab, because that helps ensure some consistency. And then make sure that there's accountability. So you need to do that. Accountability is not in a bad way. Accountability should be seen as a positive of, yes, I'm doing my part. I'm protecting my organization, myself, my team. I'm doing everything that I can. And that's why we want to try and record everything that's taking place. So a few final things, and then Goose, back to you. The readiness exercises are key, in my view. When you get up to one-off events or things that have never been done before, you need to practice, and the only way to do that is through a readiness program. Plan for the major incidents, but don't forget the more likely. Too often we always just look at what happens if there's a terrorist strike or something, that the worst things that can happen, and it is important to plan for those. It's important not to let it suck up all of your time and energy, and make sure that you're going to do the more likely things of someone's lost their accreditation, or the internet goes down in a certain venue. Same thing actually for COVID-19 for the next couple of years. It is important, and you do need to have obviously great contingency plans to deal with it, but it cannot dominate all your thinking, because all the other issues and problems and concerns are still there. This is just another one on top of it, which adds to complexity. It doesn't replace all the things that were there beforehand. Going back to the place, processes, equipment, and people, all of them are important in equal measure, just about, people being a little bit more important, but try not to let any be the weak link. If you have 3 that are brilliant and 1 which is terrible, the whole event site or event operation center won't be terrible, but it'll be close to it. So make sure that you don't have a really weak link in those 4. This is more a point for people who have not been in them too often before, but don't be shy. Go and introduce yourself. If you're put into an event control room of some sort, say hello. Not just because it will make it a better experience for you, but it's actually important for information flow. So if you've spoken to someone before and you know their name, we've made them a cup of tea, then actually you're going to be more confident in asking them for help or providing information to them. But once you're in there, a good event control room, operation center should be nice and quiet. So a nice, quiet, slightly boring operation center is what you want, with people being able to have time to do the crossword, do their reports, nothing really coming through. That's the kind of operation center you want. You don't want one where everyone's tearing around, having to deal with things all the time. And every event is different, as I keep saying. At the Olympic level, there's a lot to deal with. I didn't go into too much detail at that level because they are all slightly different, but as I've said before, it exponentially grows in complexity. Goose, back to you.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Peter, for the presentation. It was very insightful, and I guess as event professionals, when you were going through it, we're like thinking, yeah, that's true. Yeah, for sure. We got to be careful with that. We got to plan. We got to be prepared. And so we got a few questions here that I'll shoot them to you. And the first one is from Neo. She says, hi, Peter. You mentioned that your career started in London 2012. Did the main operations center there had a system like WeTrack to monitor all of the incidents, or how was that controlled at that time?
Yeah, so tech's come on a long way in even 8 years, there was a system there, and I think it came from a police background. It was certainly adequate. It didn't have any geolocation stuff, nothing like that. But there were a lot of extra fields all the time to fill in. So we had a lot of work to put information in there so that it could all be analyzed and processed. And I think the slight danger was that some venues didn't take it too seriously, because if you're given too many options and too many things to fill in, you end up not filling in any. So I think there was always a little bit of a battle for the mock game. Give us your information. And that was actually one of the reasons why I wanted to create WeTrack, was just to make it a little bit simpler and a little bit more friendly, so that people were more willing to put information in, rather than have 1,000 fields, only of which 5 you ever want to fill in.
Okay, so you can smart filter it, right? So you can have it simpler for people to fill, but also not to miss the key strategic information for decision making. Awesome. So we have another question here. It's from Tae-Hoon Lin. And thank you for your presentation, Peter. What would you consider a high-level incident in an event? Can you give us an example, and how was it resolved?
Yes. So a high-level incident, it sounds stupid, but it depends on the context of what else is happening at the time. Because if you've got not a lot happening, and then in your event control room you get something through that one of your top sponsors, the chief exec, has come over and he's come to a venue, and there's no wine left at the venue, then actually you suddenly go, that's the only thing we've got to focus on. We need to get this right because he's top sponsor. We need to do that. If at the same time you had problems with scoring and timing and transport delays and everything else at the same time, you would just push that away and you would say, no, that's not a major issue. Go and deal with that at the venue. So it's a fairly wishy-washy answer. In terms of one that I've been involved with, then there have been items where serious transport quite often comes in. So there have been delays at the local train station, and there's going to be delays for the next 2 hours. How do you deal with that? So firstly, it's quite often out of your control. So you need to find the information from that external agency, whoever's running the transport and train in that case. And then all you can do is discuss whether you need to extend the opening times or manage your footfall forecast, or however you're changing your routes into venue to deal with either a massive influx at one time rather than a steady stream, or the egress later on. So I hope that gives you half an answer.
Yeah, and I guess as well, when you speak about the high level decision making to solve, I think it also relates to the impact financially as well, and potentially as well to the image, right, for the communications, right? Because even if it's a small, simple, cheap problem, it might have a big impact on tomorrow's newspaper. So as well, I guess.
100%. And in fact, in the system now, we're introducing a lot of stuff so you can categorize all of those. So you say, look, this is a reputational, or this is an operational impact, or this is a financial impact, or all three of them, and put them in order. And then that helps get the right people in there. So if you have, as you said, a very small thing, very cheap to fix, the wrong flag coming down is a good right? Cheap to fix, reputationally quite expensive to fix.
Exactly.
Making sure that then you've got to talk to your government agencies as well. So that's actually a good example of, it always gets done, or it quite frequently happens, but making sure you deal with that very quickly in the right manner is important.
For sure. And we got another question from Lou Salituri. And in smaller scale events, what's the best way to explain and engage the client to designate someone from their team to be accountable and even participate in the event operations center? Most of the times they want to enjoy, walk around in the event and forget about possible rising incidents. They really want to enjoy it at the end, I guess.
Yeah, that's I think there should be enough people who want that experience. I think you want people in your event control room that want to be there. It becomes much harder if you're having to say, look, we've taken straws and you've got the short straw, so you're going to be in the event control room. That just sets the whole wrong tone and the wrong mental attitude to what you're doing there. The ideal thing is if you've got a number of people on a small event, is to try and do it in rotation. And I don't think it's such a specialist skill that you can't just do it for a third of the time or however often that needs to be. Rotating people through it is often good for the main operation center as well, because it's getting fresh perspective, and it's someone who might have been on site the day before is then coming back on to the main operation center, and it can give a little bit of a unique perspective rather than just be so disjointed from it all the time. And then the other thing is, if that doesn't work, then the best way to do it is in advance in the recruitment phase. That becomes part of the job description, which is you will spend during the operations or the event delivery at least 2 days in the main operations, whatever it is.
I guess you need a bit of both, no? Because first you need people who are committed to the delivery, and they know how important it is to be fast responding to incidents, but also as well the people who are going to manage and organize it, and for sure needs to be on their job description to manage.
And you could look at it the other way around. Hopefully the people walking around are not forgetting about possible arising incidents. They'd be the ones who would have to actually respond to it.
Yes, true.
You want to be the one telling you to do it or the one going to fix the problem. So you could rephrase it that way.
Very well. So we can jump for another one from Max. So hello, thank you for your presentation. Can you tell us what's the easiest and the hardest incident you have had to deal with at that level?
The easiest incidents are things that don't impact you at all, and an FA and another FA deals with, and they just tell you the result and you put it in a daily report. Remember, I haven't been operational on site for a long time. We tend to provide systems to these organizations. So I hear, but I don't hear all the information that's coming from them, obviously, because it's confidential, and I can't break any of that confidentiality. So from my main experience of being in London 2012, at that time, a lot of people were very worried about terror threat. The terror threat was very high then in London, and some of the hardest, or the ones that we were most worried about, actually turned out to be the easiest, because there were a number of suspicious packages left around the place. We thought they were suspicious packages. We get all the CCTV on there. We make sure, that's why you do all the preparation. That information flows to the head of security, who happened to be ex-army officer bomb disposal, who would look at it, study it, and say, that's fine, you can move that, it's gone. So that is absolutely, hopefully, a good story of getting the right information to the right person, because he was absolutely the right person to deal with that sort of incident, because we knew that sort of incident was likely to occur. So all about the preparation, the readiness that we did for that, and then his ability to say, no, that's fine. So it de-escalated very quickly from something that was highly severe down to something which was not an issue within minutes.
Yeah, I guess that readiness is a key point there, right? Because I guess for the terror thing, I'm sure you had different protocols of who to activate and which procedures to follow in case this happened during the games. And this is a little bit related to a question from Vanessa. So she's asking, which is the best way to train and test people involved in the main operations center in any event scale?
Yeah, hi Vanessa. The difficulty with any event scale there is the budget. Because if you've got a very small event, then they'll tend to have a smaller budget, and therefore you can't necessarily do all of the training and testing that you would want to do at the large site. But ignoring that, so budget's not really an issue. If you've got an existing venue or something relatable, you can go and do observer program type equivalent things, go and see how other people are doing it. That's always a really good way to train people, is go and show them how another operation center is working. Ideally a few months before, but if the only applicable or relevant event is happening a year before, 2 years before, then try and go to those if you can hire them in time. If you can't do that, then you need a team to lead on the testing and exercising. So you can do that in-house, or you can get externals, and lots of companies that do it. We're just also partnering up with a company that provides simulation crisis management software, and a lot of the time it's been used for oil rigs and other industries, a lot of army, as you can imagine, that sort of thing, but applying the same logic and technology to a testing program. So a simulation exercise is just one of many that you can do, the cheap version being a tabletop chat through simulation exercise. But at this level, this can have people on their phones and injects coming through, making sure that they're responding to information, and then you can capture all the decision points that everyone is making across the whole games-wide exercise and start doing analysis on too often the decisions were taken more than a minute late, and it really depends. You can see where I'm going with this, how much time and energy and money you want to spend on going into it, but trying to make it as lifelike as possible is always the best way. So not in books, not just here's your main operation center manual, read it, we go in next week. You need to make it as lifelike as you can. A good example of that that I was involved in London 2012 again was having a big readiness exercise, simulation exercise, but we did it in a hotel. We made sure that all the different teams were in separate rooms. So you quite often see a big exercise happening in one room.
Yeah.
And someone just leans over and taps his friend on the shoulder and says, what's happening with that? And then you go and you say to them, look, in real life, you're 40 kilometers apart. You cannot do that.
Yeah.
You need to get on the radio, or you need to send them a message. Go through a channel process, because that won't scale. So it's all about just making it as realistic as possible, and then also measurable, trying to measure the results that are coming out of it so you can learn from it and take actions. There's no point just running this enormous exercise and going, that was good, I think it went well. You need to really try and get as much data out of it as you can, which is why they need a lot of planning a long time beforehand. It's not something that can be knocked up in even a couple of months. It's something that really does require a bit of thought.
Yeah, so I guess also risk brainstorming and finding ways like simulations to create awareness is key, because this way when something happens, people won't be lost waiting for information, but they will be mentally ready to know the concept of what the answer will be, and they can do their part as effectively as possible, I suppose. Yeah. And if it's okay for you, I'll just bring one last question. So everybody now is thinking about Tokyo. Is it gonna go forward? Is it not? Which will be the implications? What will be the difference in the level of service for all the clients? But I mean, everyone is being very straightforward, saying that the games will happen, regardless of a vaccine or not, with public or not, we don't know. But I guess this whole context gives an additional importance to the main operation center, because the implications of COVID is huge. I guess there will be a huge flow of data coming into the MOC, the main operation center, in terms of monitoring all these people, all the temperature control, everything. So what do you think would be the implication for the main operation center there?
I'm going to start by caveating this with, I have no involvement at all in Tokyo 2020, so I am purely speculating.
We all are here.
Very, very clear. It's an interesting one, and hopefully a few of the points that I've raised come into play there. There's a lot of more data that's going to be there for sure. Taking temperature checks at village, at every venue, access control is going to be even tighter, depending obviously if it's behind closed doors or however it happens. it's important still to take that overall approach, which the vast majority of decisions have to be taken at that operational or venue level. If all of that, people are panicking and going, he's got a temperature which is 0.2 degrees over what within our accepted range, send it straight to the director of the Olympic Games, the whole thing's going to be a nightmare, and I'm sure they would never do that anyway. So that concept still needs to apply of trying to deal with things at the right level. In terms of the event control, it's going to be an increased importance and therefore increased complexity, because there will undoubtedly be more stuff going up to it. However, if they're using a fixed venue, and I don't know what they're using, but maybe it's the same as planned for last year or for this year, then the number of people that are going to be able to have access to it is actually less than what it should have been to start with. So you're going to need more people, but be able to have less. So it almost comes back to this idea of more off-site event control rooms. So I imagine they're going to have satellite control rooms, either in nearby offices or buildings or rooms, or maybe some slightly further apart, which then just makes that whole communication flow even more important. So there's a lot of different things happening at the same time, with more information, fewer people in the same place, and just a general level of complexity which is going to increase. So their readiness, I imagine, and exercising is going to be hardcore.
Yeah,
they're going to be doing a lot. But I suppose the good news, I said, don't let COVID-19 be the all-encompassing thing. I would imagine by the time it was called off, they'd already done a lot of their main operations center and other operations center rehearsals and planning. They'll need to refresh that, because I imagine there'll be some people that have changed. But because they've got that as a foundation, they probably will be in a good position to focus a little bit more on COVID-19 specific items and the fallout, especially the reputational and the comms piece and how that works. Athlete well-being, the most important of them. So it's an interesting question. I don't know the answer to it. I'm sure there are lots of smarter people than I am who know more about the setup, who are looking at it. But yeah, I wish them all the best.
Yeah, no, we all do wish them all the best of luck. It's for sure. Thank you for your answer. I mean, I guess a lot of different policies will be taken place to be solved locally, for sure. But I guess nobody has dealt with a pandemic before in an event like the Olympics. But even with as a case, and then something is solved locally and all the procedures are taken, the implications of that, and also in terms of the press, it's always going to be huge. If there's one single case, even if all the measures taken locally, it's going to make the news everywhere in the world, first page.
Yeah, and that is unfortunately that's the role of the operator. You're in operations, so if you do your job perfectly, no one talks about you. You make one mistake, and that's the thing that people focus on.
That's it.
And this is the same concept but elevated. It's the same concept on steroids, because it's the one thing that everyone's talking about.
Perfect. Awesome. So I guess with this last discussion, we can conclude. So thanks again, Peter. It was a great pleasure, and for sure as Ignites, and we'll really look forward with this partnership with WeTrack. I think this is something that we can really work together to push the events market ahead, and to be able to provide better and better events in the future. So thanks again.
Thank you very much for having me, and thanks everyone for the questions and everyone that joined.
Yes, thanks everybody. Thanks for joining. If you want to connect to Peter, you can find him on LinkedIn and also through the WeTrack website. And stay tuned for the next What Is episode. So thanks again, and see you soon.